Imagine spending every hour of every day, for weeks on end, surrounded by corpses, living in mud so deep that men actually vanished in it, while rats feasted on the remains nearby. This wasn't some chilling story. It was the harsh daily experience for millions of soldiers in World War I. The trenches of the Western Front weren't merely a strategy. They were a waking nightmare, pushing human limits beyond what most of us can fathom. Oh, and if you're enjoying these quiet journeys through the past, a like or a subscribe means the world. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It always amazes me how people fall asleep to these stories all across the globe. All right, let's drift gently back to 1916. Trust me, this will be quite the journey. But first, get cozy. Really, adjust your pillows, tuck in your blanket, because where we're going, you'll want to be as warm as possible. So, congratulations. You've just awakened in a frontline trench during World War I. Your eyes blink open into darkness. The air is damp and bitter, seeping through the coarse wool of your uniform. You're not in a bed. You're nestled into a narrow dugout, carved into the side of the trench wall, just big enough to fit your body. The hardened earth beneath you has numbed your side. Somewhere above, a slow, steady drip of water lands just inches from your face, over and over. Not quite the comfort of your bed back home. The first thing that strikes you is the smell. Dear God, the smell. A foul mix of unwashed flesh, human waste, decaying bodies, spent explosives, and that sickly sweet stench of infection. You'll never forget it, not for the rest of your life. You'll never scrub it from your nostrils or your thoughts. You reach up and feel something wriggling in your hair. Lice everywhere, in your hair, in your shirt, in your blankets. Their biting never ends. The men call it the trench curse. You'll spend hours just chatting, crushing them between your fingernails. But they always return. Always. Your dugout is small, dug crudely into the trench wall, where you rest when you're not on duty. It's reinforced with whatever could be scavenged. Wooden boards, sheets of metal, even furniture taken from bombed-out homes. In winter, it's brutally cold. In summer, unbearably hot. Never comfortable. But still, this place is the closest thing to safety you have. Slowly, with aching limbs, you drag yourself upright and crawl out of the hole. Your uniform is soaked, always soaked. Your boots squish in the muck as you stand fully inside the trench. It's dawn. That means it's time for stand to, the most dangerous hour of the day. Everyone must be alert, eyes forward, rifles ready, just in case the enemy chooses this moment to strike. The trench itself is nearly 7 feet deep, 6 feet across, zigzagging endlessly across the land, so enemy fire can't sweep straight down the line. Sandbags and wood support the sides, though in many spots, they've crumbled under the weight of rain or the constant pounding of shells. Wooden slats, known as duckboards, line the bottom, an attempt to lift your feet above the mire. But it's hopeless. When the rain comes hard, the water rises to your knees, or higher. You're not alone. All along the trench, other men emerge from the shadows, bleary-eyed, drained. Some were on night duty. They look even worse than you feel. Their faces, hollow, lined with scruff, their gazes far away as if looking through you. These are the eyes of men who've seen too much. Bloody hell, another day in paradise, mutters the man beside you, a gruff corporal with a Manchester accent. Thomas, you remember. He's been here 14 months. Better sort your kit, he mumbles. Sarge will be round any second. You check your gear. Your rifle is wrapped in cloth to keep out the sludge. It needs cleaning every day, sometimes every hour, or it won't fire. Your gas mask dangles from your neck, tucked inside its canvas bag. It must always, always be within reach. Your helmet rests heavy on your head, pockets stuffed with spare rounds. You carry a bayonet, a stubby shovel called an entrenching tool, a tin of water, and emergency rations for when no food gets through. Suddenly, a whistle. Everyone goes still. 3 short blasts, gas alert. Your chest tightens. Your hands tremble as you scramble for the mask. You were trained for this, but the fear, it never fades. The mask is stiff canvas, with thick glass lenses and a filter on the front. It's stifling, makes breathing hard, even without gas in the air. But without it, you die. "False alarm!" someone shouts down the line. "Just a test. Stay sharp, boys." The masks come off, but the dread remains. Gas is the most feared weapon out here. Chlorine that scorches your lungs and drowns you from the inside. Phosgene that kills slowly, hours after exposure, giving you time to feel it coming. And mustard gas, which burns your flesh and blinds your eyes. You've witnessed men perish from gas, their faces turning violet, frothing at the lips, gasping for air that simply won't arrive. Breakfast, comes the quiet call, and the men shuffle toward a makeshift cook area, a narrow alcove where a soldier stirs a pot over a carefully shielded flame. No smoke must rise, not even a wisp, or it might invite enemy fire. You're given a dented tin mug of tea, strong, overly sweet, and steaming hot, a true indulgence in this bleak place. Then a scoop of runny porridge and a wedge of bread, slightly hard but still edible. The bread often arrives from the rear already spotted with mold, especially during summer. But hungry men scrape off what they can and eat the rest without complaint. As you eat, rats dart boldly along the trench floor. They're huge, bloated by the corpses they feed on, and completely fearless. Some are the size of house cats. Men tell tales of waking up to find rats chewing on their boots, or worse, their faces. At night, their squeals and scuffles echo just inches from your head. The cats once brought to hunt them have long since been lost to gas or shell fire. After breakfast, tasks are handed out. Some are sent to patch broken parts of the trench, filling sandbags, reinforcing failing walls. Others take on sentry duty, watching through periscopes over no man's land, that tortured stretch of cratered dead soil between you and the enemy lines. Some men are sent to the latrine, a simple bucket in a cramped dugout, one that must be emptied often, a dreaded task. You're placed on a working party with 5 others. Tonight, your job is to lay new barbed wire outside the trench. It's perilous work, done only under darkness, and it leaves you exposed to enemy fire. For now, you prepare. Spools of twisted wire, wooden stakes, mallets wrapped in fabric to soften the sound. Midday comes, and with it another meal, bully beef, tinned corned meat, and more bread. If fortune smiles, there's a smear of jam. The food is plain, but essential. Out here, men burn through calories quickly, worn down by cold, by labor, and by never-ending stress. In the afternoon, an officer arrives for inspection. Lieutenant Parker. He's young, barely 22, but the look in his eyes, ancient. He checks the rifles, ensures everyone carries their gas masks, and reminds you all, gently, to keep your feet dry. "Trenchfoot's knocking out more of us than German bullets," he says with a distant voice. "Change your socks when you can. Rub on whale oil if it's available." Trenchfoot. A slow, creeping affliction brought on by unrelenting damp. Your feet go numb, then red, then swollen, then blue. Without care, infection sets in, and the only treatment is amputation. You've seen men hauled out on stretchers, their feet black, soft, rotting away. You quietly vow to check your own tonight, just in case. The afternoon drags on. Clouds gather above, threatening rain, the ancient enemy of trench life. When it rains, everything collapses. Walls fall, floodwaters rise, and life somehow becomes even worse. Men have drowned out here, sucked under in shell craters, buried alive in collapsed trenches. Sometimes their packs were too heavy, and they couldn't pull themselves free. Around 4 o'clock, the bombardment starts. At first, it's just a few probing shots. Then, a full barrage. The ground bucks beneath your boots. Shells explode all around. You press yourself to the trench wall, wishing you could vanish. The sound isn't just loud, it's consuming. It reverberates through your ribs, into your skull, deep into your chest. They're ranging in for a night assault, murmurs Thomas, crouched beside you. Gonna be a long one, lad. This is what soldiers fear most, the utter helplessness of an artillery storm. There's nothing you can do, nowhere to go. Just wait, hope, maybe pray. A direct hit, and it's over instantly. A near miss, and you might be buried alive, or lose a leg, or worse. The shells carry different types of death. Some are packed with explosives, some with shrapnel, some with poison gas. Each one has a sound of its own as it whistles overhead, and over time, you learn to tell them apart and fear each one differently. Shrapnel sings through the air like a swarm of furious hornets. Earth and debris fall from above. The sharp scent of explosives fills your nose, and all the while you're pressed against the cold, shaking earth, trying not to scream, not to run, not to lose control. Some men do all three. After what feels like an eternity, but is likely only 20 minutes, the shelling stops. The silence is somehow more jarring than the noise. Slowly, men emerge from the corners where they hid, trembling, checking their bodies for wounds, helping those who weren't so fortunate. 2 men from the neighboring trench section are gone, ripped apart by a direct hit. 3 more are injured, 1 missing an arm, another with jagged metal in his thigh, the 3rd dazed, unable to hear. Stretcher bearers arrive swiftly, carrying the injured to the aid station just behind the lines. The fallen, if possible, will be buried tonight. If not, they'll be laid in a shell crater and gently covered with earth. You help clear the damage, filling craters, propping up broken trench walls, gathering scattered gear. It's grim work, but essential. The trench is your shelter, your barrier. It has to be kept strong. As evening nears, you're assigned your night roles. Sentry duty from 8 p.m. to midnight. Then, the wiring team, from 2 a.m. until sunrise. If you're fortunate, you might steal 2 hours of rest in between. The darkness brings a different kind of war. At night, activity surges on both sides. Ration carriers arrive with meals and supplies. Wounded are moved. Damaged walls are repaired. And stealth parties venture into no man's land to scout, capture, or kill. Your turn at sentry duty passes, tense but quiet. You stare into blackness, trying to detect any shift in the shadows, jumping at every unfamiliar sound. Raise a false alarm, and they'll mock you. Miss something real, and you might get everyone killed. It's a heavy responsibility. At midnight, you're finally relieved. You stumble back to your dugout, craving just a little sleep. You don't take off your boots, not your belt, not your helmet. You might need to run at any moment. You curl up in your soggy pit, wrap a coarse blanket around yourself, and close your eyes. Sleep takes you fast, but it's shallow, and moments later, or so it feels, you're being shaken awake again. It's 2 a.m., pitch black, and drizzling. "Stay low, move slow, no talking," says the sergeant. "Any noise, and we don't come back." Carrying coiled wire and stakes, you follow the others out of the trench, into no man's land, the most dangerous place on Earth. A ruin of craters, corpses, shattered helmets, and twisted metal, and all of it watched, closely, by enemy machine gunners. You crawl on your belly through sludge that stinks of rot and chemicals. Every few feet, you pass a body, or what's left of one. Men from past assaults, never recovered. Some have been here for months, half buried, half exposed. You avoid looking at their faces. The work is terrifying, painful. The barbed wire slices your hands even through thick gloves. Every tiny sound, the rustle of wire, the soft knock of a wooden mallet, feels unbearably loud. Sometimes, flares light up the sky. When they do, everyone freezes, perfectly still, until the darkness returns. It takes 3 hours to complete a single line of wire. 3 hours of inching through horror, waiting to die. When you finally crawl back to the trench, your uniform is soaked, with mud, with blood, and the filth of the land you crossed. The sky begins to lighten. Time for stand to. No sleep yet. Maybe, this afternoon, if things stay calm. You return to the firing step, rifle ready, eyes fixed on the German trench, just 200 yards away. This is your life now. Endless days of filth, of dread, of exhaustion, and death. Some men collapse completely, sobbing, unable to move. Some even shoot themselves, just to leave this place. They call it shell shock. But that phrase barely begins to describe the psychological ruin that trench life inflicts. Some men cope by developing a strange humor, joking about death, crafting little souvenirs from spent shells and broken bayonets. Others turn to superstition. They carry charms or repeat silent rituals that, in their hearts, they hope will protect them. But most simply survive one day at a time, not daring to think too far ahead, because the future, out here, feels like a fog you may never reach. The morning light cuts through the clouds, harsh and unforgiving. It exposes everything. No man's land glows in grim detail. Craters filled with stagnant water, snarled barbed wire, shattered equipment, and scattered among it all, evidence of failed charges. You see them, bodies decomposing slowly, frozen in twisted poses, some still reaching out toward your trench in a final hopeless plea. Far ahead, just barely visible, lie the German lines, the enemy, men, just like you, enduring the same filth, suffering the same pain, and slowly, the reasons for this war, they begin to feel hollow. A messenger appears. He hands a note to the lieutenant, a brief exchange, somber expressions. Then, the officer steps toward your group. "We're going over the top, tomorrow at dawn." That's all he says. "Get some rest. Write your letters. Be ready." A cold pressure grows in your chest. You know what this means. Tomorrow. You leave the trench, you climb out, and run straight into enemy fire. Most of you won't reach halfway. But that's tomorrow. For now, there's gear to prepare, letters to scribble, maybe a few hours of restless sleep. This is your world now, a narrow channel in the earth, where life and death sit side by side, where every sunrise might be your last, and where the real enemy isn't the Germans, it's the war itself. Thomas catches your look and silently hands you a cigarette. a rare treasure in this place. First time going up? He asks, though he already knows. You nod. Your throat is too tight to answer. Look to your right and your left when it starts. Don't think. Just move with them. That's all. His words don't bring peace, but his voice does, and his presence. Out here, brotherhood is forged in blood and terror. The men beside you, they're the only ones who understand. They're all that matters now. As the morning settles in, the trench grows busy. You clean your rifle, slowly, carefully, checking every piece. It may save your life, or not. Around you, others write hurried letters. Some murmur quiet prayers. Some just stare at nothing. A few laugh too loudly. A brittle wall against the dread. The day creeps forward. It might be your last, and it's filled with chores and thoughts you try not to think. Tomorrow, many of you will fall. For what? A few feet of broken land, mud and wire. That's the truth of this war. This grinder of youth, devouring boys by the thousands. This is trench life. A life of extremes, of bitter cold, of sudden fear, of deep, strange friendship, where a dry pair of socks feels like salvation, and a letter from home, a whisper from another world, a world that feels further away with each passing sunrise. And then, another dawn breaks. Same routine, same fears. From the sea to the Swiss mountains, hundreds of thousands of men rise in the gray pre-dawn light, each one preparing for the most dangerous moment of the day. Stand to. The hushed command ripples down the line. Every able man rises to position, rifle loaded, bayonet attached, ready to resist whatever may come. Dawn and dusk. Those are the hours of most frequent attacks. So now, vigilance reigns. You climb to the fire step, a narrow ledge carved into the trench wall, just high enough to let you see over the parapet into the gray, ghostly waste of no man's land. Your body groans, still aching from yesterday's labor and the damp cold of night. But you force your mind to sharpen. Lives depend on it. As the sky brightens, revealing yet another muted morning, the tension eases slightly. No assault today. A soft breath of relief moves down the trench, a shared exhale, as the stand-to ends. Now begins the daily rhythm. First, the morning hate, a grim tradition. Both sides fire mortars and shells almost as if they're saying good morning with explosions. It usually lasts 30 minutes. Old hands know which batteries are firing by the sound of the shells alone. "That's the Bavarians," says a grizzled sergeant beside you, tilting his head at the incoming whistle. Always punctual, those lads. When the barrage fades, breakfast begins. The first of 2 meals you'll have today. The cooks, stationed in a dugout just behind the line, have been up since well before sunrise. You join the line of tired men, each holding a mess tin. The cooks are gruff, worn down by the long night, but deeply respected. Anyone who can turn army rations into something edible is a hero here. "What's on today's menu, Cookie?" someone calls out. "Breakfast a la trench," comes the dry reply. "Same as yesterday and the day before." Into your tin goes a ladle of lukewarm tea, dark as ink, sweetened with condensed milk and heaps of sugar to fuel the morning. Next, a scoop of bacon if luck favors you, though more often it's bully beef, the ever-present canned meat British soldiers know too well. A biscuit comes too, so hard that men joke about using them to write home. "Better than what the Germans get," murmurs the man beside you, gnawing on his ration. "Heard they're down to turnip bread these days." There's some truth to that. On the other side, flour is scarce, and their bread is padded with dried ground turnips. You find a somewhat dry patch of ground, sit, and eat quickly. It's not exciting, but it fills your belly. In your pocket, you carry your iron ration for emergencies only. A tin of bully beef, a biscuit, a pinch of tea and sugar. Use it without permission, and you'll face harsh consequences. After breakfast comes the most welcome moment of the day, the rum ration. The quartermaster sergeant arrives with a heavy earthenware jug marked SRD service rum, though the joke is that it means soon runs dry. Each man receives a small pour of the dark spirit in his tea mug, just enough to warm the chest and steel the nerves. Some officers debate whether alcohol should be given at all, but out here, no one questions its worth. It helps, with the cold, with the fear, with everything. Some religious men refuse it, passing theirs to grateful mates. Once the rum is gone, the day's labor begins. Trench upkeep never ends. Walls collapse from rain and shelling. Floors sink into sludge. Sandbags rot. Duckboards vanish beneath the mud. Today, you're assigned to drainage duty. Water, after the Germans, is your worst enemy. Without proper channels, the trench floods. Walls give way, and men suffer, badly. You and your team dig trenches to redirect the water. It's hard labor, and dangerous. You must stay low to avoid snipers. The mud, it feels almost alive. It swallows tools, fills in every channel, and seeps into your boots, your fingers, your bones. Mid-morning, a whisper travels down the line. Mail. Mail call is sacred, a precious thread to the world outside. You stop digging. You listen for your name. The clerk appears, moving carefully through the trench, reading names from a stack of letters and parcels. Williams, Parker, Taylor, Davis. Then, your name. You step forward. He hands you a worn envelope, your mother's handwriting. You press it to your chest, then tuck it safely inside your tunic. You'll read it later, alone. These letters are treasures. They deserve quiet. Some men receive packages too. Home comforts, chocolate, tobacco, a knitted scarf, a tin of cake. Tiny miracles, in a place that forgot what comfort feels like. Packages from home are often shared. In those rare moments, the trench feels almost normal, like life still exists beyond the barbed wire. But soon, it's back to work. The morning stretches on slowly. Around 11 o'clock, you notice men checking their watches with growing frequency. Word has spread. A ration party is coming, bringing bread, tea, sugar, maybe even newsprint. But bringing supplies is no small task. These men carry heavy loads through winding communication trenches, often collapsed, flooded, or watched by enemy eyes. If the passageways are too broken, they may be forced to cross open ground, a dangerous path, one where snipers wait. Today's party arrives whole, led by a red-faced corporal muttering curses about the German guns that found them along the route. Supplies are handed out swiftly. The bread is relatively fresh, baked last night in field ovens just behind the line. Tins of jam appear, plum and apple today, along with sugar and more tea. Then comes the water cart. Water here is as precious as bullets. Each man carries a canteen, meant to last between refills. The water is chlorinated, heavily, to kill germs. It leaves a sharp chemical taste you never quite get used to. Sometimes men try to collect rainwater, but with rotting bodies nearby, even that can carry illness. You fill your canteen carefully and take small sips. Dehydration is common, especially in summer when soldiers sweat beneath thick woolen uniforms. But a full bladder can be just as bad, especially when the latrine is far away or the shelling makes movement deadly. Speaking of latrines, they're among the worst parts of life in the trenches. In well-dug positions, they're deep pits with wooden seats. placed in side trenches to give some privacy and to reduce the stench. They're treated regularly with chloride of lime to cut down on smell and stop flies from breeding. In fresh trenches, or temporary ones, the latrine might be just a bucket. It must be emptied over the parapet at night. A risky job no one envies. Some places have chemical toilets, but those are rare and treasured. Hygiene overall is a constant battle. You haven't bathed properly in weeks. At best, you wash with your helmet, a canteen bath, just enough to clean your face and hands. Shaving is mandatory, so gas masks can seal tightly. It's done with cold water. Razors are often shared. Lice are with you always. They hide in the seams of every uniform, biting, itching, spreading trench fever, a painful illness that brings high fevers and splitting headaches. The best defense is a ritual called chatting. Soldiers light a candle and run the flame along their clothing seams, bursting lice eggs. Then, they crush the adults with their thumbnails. It becomes a social event. Men sit side by side, helping one another reach awkward places. They swap stories, trade rumors. "Got a fat one here," says the lad beside you, a boy from Lancashire. He pinches the insect between his fingers, grinning with satisfaction. "Reckon this one's been feasting on officers." By midday, the second and last meal of the day is served. More bully beef, perhaps turned into stew if the cooks are imaginative, mixed with hardtack biscuits and jam. On better days, there might be cheese or tinned vegetables. On the rarest days, you might even get meat, fresh, not canned. But those days are fading as the war grinds on. After lunch, there's another stand-to, shorter than the morning one, but still necessary. Then, more labor, broken only by the occasional shell or a sniper's crack in the distance. Communication here is its own tangled system. Field telephones connect officers, but wires are often cut by enemy blasts. When the phones go silent, runners take their place, brave men, carrying handwritten messages through the trenches. It's one of the most dangerous roles out here. You watch one now, splashing past, a sealed message tube in hand. He moves with the practiced stoop that all veterans adopt, keeping his head low, below sniper range. Other forms of communication still exist. Signal flares, flags, mirrors that flash messages, and pigeons. Yes, pigeons, housed in mobile lofts behind the front. They're surprisingly reliable. Even through gas and fire, they find their way home. Weather is a constant force in trench life. Rain turns the trench into a watery canal. Summer heat draws clouds of flies and stirs the stench of decay. Winter brings frostbite and trench foot. Today, a light drizzle begins in the mid-afternoon, just enough to soak everything slowly without the full shelter of a proper storm. The clay ground grows slick. Progress slows as men slip, struggling to stay upright. "Could be worse," murmurs Thomas philosophically. "Remember that storm last month? Lightning hit the wire. The Germans thought we were charging. They opened fire with everything they had. Out here, trench foot is the most common affliction in wet weather. Preventing it becomes a near religious ritual. When possible, soldiers remove boots and socks, dry their feet thoroughly, and rub them with whale oil or lard. A dry pair of socks is more valuable than gold. Officers inspect feet often. They know a soldier with trench foot is a soldier lost to the fight. "Show me your plates," says the lieutenant, using slang for feet. Men sit along the duck boards, pulling off boots and damp socks for the daily inspection. Those with early signs, pale, swollen skin, are sent to the medic. Medical care follows a system of levels. Minor cuts and illness are treated at an aid post just behind the front. More serious cases go to a dressing station, then onto a casualty clearing post, and, if needed, a base hospital far from the lines. Each day, the regimental medical officer makes his rounds. He carries tablets for dysentery, iodine for cuts, and, for most things, rum. Severe cases are carried down the line by stretcher bearers, who carefully navigate the trenches with their fragile human cargo. By late afternoon, the drizzle fades, but the ground remains slippery with mud. Work crews finish securing tools and materials before nightfall. The routine is numbing in its repetition. And yet, death hangs so near that boredom never really comes. Men nap whenever they can, leaning against walls, curled into dugouts, just for a few minutes, but it's never deep sleep. Shells, shouts, orders. Most men develop the skill to wake instantly at the softest, unfamiliar sound. As dusk falls, the trench begins to stir. Ration parties return with the day's final delivery. Wounded are carried out under the safety of growing darkness. Relief units might arrive, giving some the chance to pull back to the support trenches, or even further, for a precious day of rest. The trench network has three main layers. The front line, face to face with the enemy. Behind it, the support trench, home to company command posts and a few extra troops. Further still, the reserve trench, with battalion headquarters and deeper dugouts. Men rotate between them, usually spending 4 to 6 days in each position before pulling back behind the lines for rest and resupply. Relief is a slow, careful process. New arrivals are led in by guides who know every bend and hazard of the trench. They're briefed on enemy activity, booby traps, weak spots, and scheduled repairs. Their gear is checked: gas masks, ammunition, helmets. Only then do the outgoing men slip away, quietly. Tonight, though, there's no relief for you. Your unit stays put. At least 3 more days on the front line. Evening stand to begins. The light fades, and once more, every man takes position on the fire step, eyes fixed on the darkening horizon. This is when trench raids happen. Small teams of men slip across no man's land, to spy, to capture, to kill, to destroy. As night deepens, a strange shift occurs. The stillness of daytime gives way to quiet motion. Repair crews emerge, patching sandbags and broken planks. Ration runners move more freely. Lookouts remain alert, but others can finally stretch, bend, and move without fear of snipers. The weather, as always, will determine what happens next. Clear nights with moonlight or sudden flares make movement perilous. Stormy nights offer cover, but make the work harder. Tonight is cloudy, but dry. Ideal in its way. Your evening task: sentry duty. 2 hours of intense focus, gazing into the darkness, listening for faint rustles, for any clue that an enemy patrol may be near. It's draining, more mentally than physically. One missed sound, one overlooked shadow, and your entire section could be gone. Sentries usually work in pairs when possible, keeping one another alert. The rhythm is simple: an hour on, an hour ready. One watching, the other standing by, not resting, but breathing. You step into position, rifle loaded, eyes squinting into the haze. No man's land shifts at night. It looks different, more threatening, more alive. Shadows twist strangely. Movement feels closer. Flares burst now and then, casting everything in a pale, ghostly glare, followed by a thicker dark. "Keep your eyes moving," says the older soldier beside you. Stare too long, and the ground starts playing tricks. Time slows. Every faint noise in the wire, every shifting outline, pulls your attention. Is it a rat or something far worse? You can't afford the wrong answer. Between watches, the men stay busy. Some write letters by candlelight, carefully shielding the flame to hide its glow. Others clean rifles, sew torn seams, or talk softly about anything but the war. Topics drift between food, home, and women. Rarely combat. The ones who've been here longest often say the least. My wife says they've got meat rationing back home, murmurs a corporal, reading from a letter. 12 ounces a week per person. She's learning to make rabbit stew. Rabbit stew, someone repeats, dreamily. Another soldier sighs, his voice low. My mum made it with carrots and little dumplings. Food. Always food. It becomes a quiet obsession, a way to remember that life exists beyond this place. Men describe familiar meals with loving precision. It's a shared comfort, a flicker of warmth. Officers walk the trench, checking on sentries, inspecting weapons, confirming gas masks. They carry a deeper burden, the weight of decisions that decide who stays alive and who doesn't. Your lieutenant pauses at your post. Anything? He asks in a whisper. All quiet, sir, you reply. He nods, then moves on. In the soft torchlight, his young face looks years older. Officers age quickly out here. Around midnight, your watch ends. You're replaced and returned to your dugout for a few precious hours of sleep. It's crowded. Men are already curled into corners, some dozing, some writing, some hunched over cards. A candle flickers, shielded. You find your place, barely enough space to stretch your legs. You lie down, using your pack as a pillow, and despite everything, exhaustion pulls you under. The last sounds you hear, a distant boom, artillery, the soft scampering of rats, the steady breathing of men nearby. Sleep in the trenches is never deep, never peaceful. Dreams come vivid, and often they're nightmares. Men cry out in their sleep, reliving charges and shellings. Others sleepwalk and must be caught before they unknowingly climb over the edge into no man's land. Later, you're woken by the crack of shells, a nighttime harassment barrage. The Germans do this every few hours. The blasts hit further back, near the support trench. But sleep is shattered. Around you, others are awake too, silent, measuring each sound. Whistle, crump, whistle, crump. They listen like unwilling experts, knowing the tone, the pattern, the distance. When the shelling finally ceases, the trench settles back into its usual quiet. Some men drift into restless sleep again. Others lie awake, thinking of home, or of what tomorrow may bring. The night stretches on, longest for those who can't rest. At 3 a.m., you're gently shaken awake for your second sentry duty of the night. Groggy and stiff, you make your way back to the fire step, where a shadowy figure waits to be relieved. Anything? You murmur, the timeless question of sentries everywhere. Thought I heard wire cutters about an hour ago, he replies. Fired a few rounds, then nothing. Probably rats. You nod, take his place, and raise your rifle. Your breath forms a cloud in the chill. Slowly, your senses sharpen as the last fog of sleep lifts. These hours before dawn, they're the hardest, the coldest, the quietest, and often the most dangerous. Morale dips, eyes strain. The enemy often probes defenses in this gray half-light. Around 5 a.m., the sky begins to shift, black to blue, then blue to misted gray. The hour of raids, of patrols, of uncertain shapes in the gloom. A message moves quietly through the trench. Stand to. Again. Every man takes position, eyes scanning the field as no man's land reveals its ugly form from the shadows. The cycle is complete. Another rotation begins. Full daylight arrives. There's no enemy movement. The daily rhythm resumes. More waiting, more digging, more watching, and somehow the men endure. Resilience becomes survival. Humor clings on. Friendships deepen. And life continues in this narrow sliver of mud and wire. Breakfast comes. Tea, bacon, and biscuits today. A luxury compared to bully beef. The tea is hot and heavily sweetened. You sip it slowly, savoring its warmth. "Mail today," announces the sergeant, "and hot rations tonight if the road holds." Small news, but it brings unexpected joy. A letter, a hot plate, dry socks. In the trenches, these are priceless. After breakfast, assignments are handed out. Today, you're filling sandbags. Simple work, but safe. You join a small group in a widened part of the trench. Stacks of empty sacks, a mound of loose earth. The task repeats. Hold the bag, shovel dirt, pack it down, tie it tight, stack it up, and again. Thousands are needed each day to patch holes, build walls, stop water. As you work, talk floats around you. Rumors say relief is coming in 3 days. Some debate whether the war will end before Christmas. Others share bits from old newspapers. Time passes faster with words, and the pile of sandbags grows. You're now midway through your second week in the trenches. The shock has dulled, replaced by routine, by weary familiarity. The veterans call it getting your trench legs. That moment when flinching becomes habit, and you know the sound of every incoming shell before it lands. But comfort here is always fragile, and the illusion never lasts long. Today begins just like the others, until it doesn't. You're helping repair a broken section of trench wall when something feels different. The sound changes, not the usual rumble of artillery, deeper, hollow, from the German side. Then, a distinctive hiss, a pause. "Minenwerfer!" someone shouts. "Take cover!" A trench mortar, short range, high arc, fired from close behind the enemy lines. Impossible to track, impossible to dodge. You throw yourself into the nearest dugout, just as the first round hits. The ground jolts, a low roar, earth rains down, wood snaps, splinters fall like snow. Your ears ring, loud and sharp, from the blast's pressure. Before you can fully recover, a second explosion lands nearby, then a third. The Germans are bracketing your trench, firing at slightly different distances to find the perfect range. Once they've dialed it in, they'll hammer this stretch until nothing remains. "Stay down!" a sergeant roars, as a few men instinctively bolt forward. They're walking it in. Trench mortars are terrifying, because you have nowhere to run. In open battlefields, soldiers can spread out, minimizing the effects of shell fire. But in these narrow trenches, the blasts are funneled, and there's no room to escape. A direct hit from a Minenwerfer can erase an entire section, and everyone in it. The barrage continues. 20 minutes, but it feels endless. Each impact shakes loose more dirt from the ceiling. Dust thickens in the air. Breathing becomes difficult. Eyes sting. Lungs tighten. Men press themselves flat against the earth or curl into tiny trembling shapes. Some mutter prayers. Others just curse. And then silence. Heavy. Unnatural. Then voices calling out. Casualties? Anyone hit? Stretcher bearers. Point 4. Brace that wall before it comes down. You crawl out slowly. The trench has changed. Where once there was structure, a fire step, a dugout, there's now only a jagged crater. A comms post has collapsed. 2 men dig frantically through the debris. They pull a third out, his face covered in blood, but somehow still breathing. This is the cruel math of trench warfare. Hundreds of shells, fired to wound or kill a few. But those few add up, and the war grinds on. German artillery uses different shells for different jobs. High explosive shells, meant to destroy walls and shelters. Shrapnel shells, that explode mid-air, sending metal shards raining down. And gas shells, that leak their poison into every crevice. Of course, your side has artillery too. Behind the lines, British guns reply. The 18-pounders fire flat, fast rounds, good for cutting wire or hitting infantry lines. The larger howitzers lob their weighty shells high over the front, into dugouts, into camps, into the enemy's heart. Counter-battery fire, says a corporal, as the ground vibrates beneath your boots. They're trying to silence the mortars. Artillery is the great killer of this war. It causes more deaths than rifles or machine guns combined. And what makes it so feared is its impersonality. It comes from nowhere. No one sees it. No one chooses you. There's no escape, no shield, only earth and hope. You help clear the wreckage, bracing walls, gathering tools. An officer arrives with a fresh work team. "We need this fixed by nightfall," he says, eyes scanning the damage. If Jerry thinks this spot's weak, he'll hit it again, probably with a raid. Raids, another constant of trench warfare. Small squads cross into enemy lines to kill, capture, gather intel, or simply spread terror. Both sides do it. Nighttime is full of fear. You shovel dirt into fresh sandbags, quick, efficient. You pass them along to men stacking the wall again. Others salvage planks and duckboards from the ruin. As you work, a whisper moves down the line. The unit next to yours took a gas attack before sunrise. No one's sure if it was chlorine or phosgene. Several men dead, dozens carried back with seared lungs. Gas, perhaps the most feared weapon on this front. It was first used in 1915 at the Second Battle of Ypres. The Germans introduced it. Despite treaties forbidding chemical warfare, every side now uses it. Each gas has its own kind of horror. Chlorine burns the lungs. Men drown slowly, in their own fluid. Phosgene acts similarly, but crueler. It lets a man walk, breathe, feel fine, and then hours later, his lungs fill with liquid, and he collapses. Mustard gas is one of the cruelest weapons. It blisters the skin, burns the eyes, and wrecks the lungs, turning breath into agony. Gas attacks often begin with a strange whispering hiss as cylinders release their poison into the air. The clouds roll outward, pale and slow, riding the breeze toward enemy lines. Later in the war, gas shells became more common, fired like ordinary artillery, giving far less warning than the old canisters. Your gas mask hangs from your neck in its worn canvas pouch. It's always there. Always. Earlier masks were little more than gauze pads soaked in chemicals, sometimes even urine, to neutralize the chlorine. Primitive, but better than nothing. Now you carry a small box respirator, standard issue, a cloth mask with 2 glass eyepieces and a hose connected to a charcoal filter. It protects you from most things. Gas drills are routine. You've learned to put your mask on in under 6 seconds, not because of skill, but because anything longer could be the end. Men with damaged lungs often suffer more than those who lose limbs. A missing arm, you can live with, but gas takes your breath forever. By midday, the damaged trench is roughly patched, ugly but functional. You're finally rotating back to the dugout for a short rest when the warning comes. Sniper, keep down, Junction 4. Every trench has its cursed spots, places where the walls are too low or the angle is exposed. or where a sniper has a perfect line of fire. Veterans learn these places and pass their wisdom on. Snipers are everywhere, quiet, patient, deadly. They carry rifles fitted with scopes and often shoot from camouflaged nests behind the wire. They aim for officers, machine gunners, observers, but they'll shoot anyone who rises into view. You press your back to the trench wall, your body instinctively shrinking. Others do the same, ducking low as if the air itself has grown sharp. Movement here becomes a dance of angles, a cautious, bent-over shuffle. Every trench turns in zigzags, so a single shot can't tear through the entire line. "Got Phillips right through the head," someone whispers nearby. "Didn't even know it hit him." Snipers don't cause the most deaths, but their presence changes everything. The constant fear, the tension, makes men crouch even on leave. The habit is hard to break. Counter-sniping is its own dark art. Sharp-eyed soldiers scan for the glint of a scope, the twitch of movement, the subtle shift in shadows. Some use decoys, dummy heads on sticks, lifted above the parapet to draw enemy fire. It's a silent chess match, played with bullets. Later in the day, a runner delivers orders. You've been assigned to a wiring party tonight. The morning shelling tore gaps in the barbed wire defenses just beyond your trench. Those breaks must be fixed before dawn. Otherwise, the enemy might slip through. Wiring parties are some of the most perilous jobs. You leave the trench. You crawl into no man's land. You work exposed, in silence, with your hands. Even in daylight, barbed wire is difficult. In darkness, it becomes brutal. It snags your sleeves. Tears skin through gloves. Every sound, a risk. As evening settles, the lieutenant gathers your group, 6 men. "There's about 30 yards of wire needing repairs," he says, gesturing to a sketchy map. 2 wide gaps, enough for a raid. We fix them tonight. He explains the plan. Artillery will fire in bursts, covering the sound of your work, masking your movement. A Lewis gun crew will stand ready just in case. If flares go up, he says, don't run. Freeze. Blend in. Running only draws the bullets. You prepare your tools, rolls of wire, wooden stakes, mallets, wrapped in cloth to muffle their knocks, wire cutters to remove damaged fencing. Each man carries his rifle, ammunition, and grenades, just in case. As the last light fades, you begin final preparations. Your face is blackened with burnt cork to disappear into the shadows. Anything that might reflect or rattle is tied down or tucked away. The night's password and response are issued, a quiet ritual to distinguish friend from foe in the dark. Just before midnight, you go over the top. Leaving the trench feels unreal. After so many days buried below ground, the open air of no man's land feels too vast, too exposed. You crawl forward on your stomach through a narrow sap trench that stretches part way toward the German lines. Then you fan out into the darkness. No man's land is a nightmare, a shattered expanse of craters and rusting wire, lit only by the occasional flare. The earth is pitted and torn, each shell crater holding water gone foul. Broken coils of barbed wire lie tangled across the mud and scattered everywhere. The dead, some recent, others long decayed, untouchable, caught between 2 fires. The work begins slowly, painfully slowly. Every movement must be silent, precise. You unwind wire, tap stakes into the earth with cloth-wrapped mallets. One quiet sound at a time. Damaged strands are cut. New wire is strung. You do it all by feel, not by sight, in near total blackness. Your fingers fumble with cold steel. Then, a flare, a burst of harsh white light from the enemy side. Everyone freezes, mid-motion, becoming still shapes on the torn landscape. The light hovers, lingers, then fades. You breathe again and continue. But halfway through, something goes wrong. A man to your right gets caught in the wire. He tries to pull free, but makes noise. Too much noise. A German machine gun opens up. Its rounds rip through the air. Bullets strike mud, stone, metal. "Down! Stay low!" the sergeant hisses. From your trench, a Lewis gun fires back, laying down covering shots. The German gun shifts aim, and your team begins crawling back, one by one, except for the man still caught. He doesn't move. Back in the trench, roll call confirms what you already fear. One missing, presumed dead. The lieutenant looks tired, but not surprised. Wiring parties nearly always come at a price. The task is vital and fatal. "We'll try again tomorrow," he says. Different sector. This is the cold calculation of life at the front. The wire is your first barrier. Without it, the trench is open, and more lives would be lost. Dawn comes, eyes red, bodies numb, the memory of the night's mission still playing on repeat. Could you have acted sooner? Said something? Moved faster? The veterans warn against these thoughts. They only lead to paralysis or reckless choices, both deadly. A new sound rises, a distant hum, growing louder. A German airplane, low in the sky, the black crosses on its wings clearly visible. Observation planes are the eyes of artillery. They mark targets, guide shells. If they spot clusters of troops or command posts, a barrage will follow soon after. "Take cover," comes the order. Though cover here is scarce, men press themselves into corners, dugouts, any crevice they can find. The Lewis guns are raised. These light machine guns can be fired from the shoulder or mounted on bipods. They're not made for anti-aircraft use, but sometimes they work. More often, they just convince pilots to fly higher. Machine guns have reshaped this war. The British favor the Vickers, a heavy, water-cooled weapon that can fire 450 rounds per minute for hours, if properly maintained. It takes 6 to 8 men to operate it well. They build special emplacements for these guns, designed for clear shots across no man's land. The Lewis gun is lighter, more mobile, useful in defense or attack. It has a distinct drum-shaped magazine on top. It fires faster, about 550 rounds per minute, but overheats quickly. The Germans, they have the MG-08, based on the same design as the Vickers, but used in larger numbers, especially early on. They place their guns to cover every angle, every gap, creating fields of fire that overlap, so no one crosses unseen. These weapons changed everything. A single machine gun can hold off hundreds of charging infantry, turning even the boldest advance into a futile sprint through curtains of bullets. This is why frontal assaults bleed so heavily, and why the war has frozen into stalemate. Entrenched on both sides, the plane passes overhead without consequence, but peace doesn't last. By mid-morning, a new attack begins. A short mortar barrage, followed by a German raiding party. They hit a trench 200 yards away. A sudden brutal clash erupts. Grenades, bayonets, pistols, all in tight, suffocating space. The attack is repelled, but not without cost. 2 British soldiers are taken prisoner. Several others don't make it. Prisoners are prized. They offer insights, what unit they're from, how strong the enemy line is, what might be coming next. That's why these raids never stop. Information is as vital as ammunition. After the raid, tension spikes. Raids often precede larger assaults, testing defenses, marking weaknesses, confirming targets. Everyone grows more alert. Eyes scan the German line. Guns thunder again. What begins as morning hate swells into something bigger, a true exchange. Shells strike rear areas, roads, supply lines, artillery camps. Your own guns answer back, a sign they've found something worth hitting. Later, the company commander calls a quiet meeting of officers and NCOs. When they return, word spreads fast. Tonight, you'll raid them. Your group will stay behind to provide covering fire. 12 men and an officer make up the raiding party. They clean their weapons with care. They blacken metal parts to avoid reflections. Each is issued extra grenades and trench knives, compact, brutal tools for close combat in tight corridors. "Mills bombs, sir? Or rifles?" asks a corporal. "Mills," the lieutenant replies. "We want prisoners, not corpses." That answer sets the tone. Mills bombs, the standard hand grenades, mean the team will move fast and hard. They'll creep to the wire, cut gaps in silence, then surge into the trench, grenades clearing the way. They'll grab what they can, men, maps, messages, then vanish before reinforcements arrive. Your job is to stay ready. You and your section will hold the fire step. Rifles, Lewis guns, eyes scanning. If the raiders are discovered, you'll cover their escape. You'll also watch for a German reply from nearby sectors. As dusk creeps in, the tension builds. Some write final letters. Others check their gear again and again. Veterans act casual, but their tight jaws tell a different story. Everyone knows raids are chaos. Plans rarely hold once bullets start flying. An hour before the move, your artillery opens up. Not on the raid's exact target. That would tip your hand. But to the sides. Diversions. Misdirection. It's all about time. The raiders make final checks. Some remove their ID tags. They leave one behind, with a friend, just in case. Others strip insignias. Officers are always the first to be targeted. Weapons are checked. Grenades placed where they're easiest to grab. "Remember," says the officer, "we need at least 2 prisoners. And if you're hit," his voice lowers, "don't make noise." It's harsh, but true. One scream can doom them all. Some carry morphine, just in case. At 11:30 p.m., the team climbs the parapet. They disappear into the night. You take your place on the fire step, rifle loaded, finger resting, eyes narrowed against the dark. Minutes pass. Stillness. Then, a sudden crack. The heavy crump of grenades. Machine guns open up. German voices echo across the void. 14. "Fire!" comes the order. Your sergeant's voice is low, but firm. The covering party responds. A steady stream of bullets just over the heads of the raiders to keep German reinforcements at bay. A flare arcs skyward, white, brilliant, cruel. It floods no man's land with harsh light. You see shadows, some falling, some throwing. Grenades disappear into the German trench. The exchange escalates. 3 minutes pass. Then, movement. Figures break from the German line, shadows dragging other shadows. They're returning. The raiders are coming back. They pull 2 men, Germans, clearly prisoners, and help carry their own wounded. "Cease fire!" rings out. The trench falls silent as the raiders stumble back in. 2 German soldiers, young and terrified, stand blinking in confusion. 3 British soldiers wince and bleed. 2 others never made it back. The raid is deemed successful. 2 prisoners, documents, and confirmation. A Bavarian regiment holds that line. The price? 2 dead, 3 wounded. To the officers, acceptable. To their friends, something else entirely. The prisoners are quickly taken away. The wounded receive morphine, bandages, and gentle murmurs before being evacuated. The survivors? They drink rum with trembling hands. the adrenaline still surging. Trench combat isn't glorious, not like the posters claimed. It's dark, chaotic, fought in narrow alleys of mud and wire. Bayonets are clumsy. Clubs, knives, sharpened shovels, those are more effective. Grenades are tossed blindly around corners before stepping forward. Machine guns turn long, straight stretches into corridors of death. The day after a raid is usually quieter. Both sides catch their breath, count the cost, bury the dead. But the silence never stays. By mid-morning, German guns begin again. The pattern is different, deliberate, measured. "This isn't just payback," mutters an old sergeant, listening to the rhythm. "They're getting ready." Word spreads. Extra ammunition is issued. Reserve troops inch forward. Gas masks are checked and checked again. Everyone feels it. Something's coming. Around noon, the shelling changes again. A dull plop instead of the familiar crack. A new sound. A worse sound. "Gas!" The cry rises in chorus from every direction. It echoes down the trench, urgent, panicked, practiced. Shell casings clang, an improvised alarm beaten like bells. You grab your mask, out of the bag, shake it clean, over your face, tighten straps, exhale hard, seal checked, drill complete in seconds. The rubber clings, tight, sweaty, stifling. The eyepieces fog, vision blurs. Through the distorted glass, you see it, a slow, rolling cloud, sickly green-yellow, pushed by the breeze straight toward you. Chlorine gas. It sinks into craters, into trenches, into lungs. Without a mask, it burns, it drowns. Even with one, prolonged exposure can still kill. You wait. 30 minutes, inside your mask. Each breath is work. The filter makes it harder. Your skin itches. Your thoughts start to swirl. Communication fades to gestures, muffled sounds behind rubber mouths. You endure, and you hope. The cloud keeps moving. Some men panic. Even after all the training, they claw at their masks, their breath catching in sudden, desperate gasps. Others hold them down, calm hands against rising fear until the moment passes. A few, less lucky, begin to cough and choke. The seal broken, the poison slips in. They're led, stumbling, to the nearest aid post. Orderlies administer oxygen, but no one knows if it will be enough. As the gas thins, a new danger takes shape. German infantry emerge behind the fading cloud, masks in place, long filter canisters dangling. They've timed their attack, precise, cold, calculated. Stand to, masks on. The order moves through the trench like a current. You raise your rifle awkwardly, your view distorted by fogged glass. The machine guns speak first, a stuttering chorus of defense, their rhythm muffled but familiar. Figures fall in no man's land, but others press on, reaching the wire. Fire. The voice is distant but unmistakable. You squeeze the trigger. The rifle kicks. You cycle the bolt. Another round. Another shot. The Germans toss grenades, stick bombs that arc gracefully and land with deadly purpose. You duck. The blast is close. Your ears ring. Shrapnel sings past like angry insects. The charge falters. Some attackers fall back, others surrender. A few drop into craters, becoming snipers, waiting silently for any careless movement. The trench becomes a place of tension without movement. For hours, you listen, to wind, to distant cries, to the slow return of breath. Gas lingers. Its touch still burns the lungs even after the masks are off. At dusk, Red Cross flags rise. Stretcher parties move cautiously, collecting the wounded from both sides. Dozens are lost today, some to bullets, some to shrapnel, some simply couldn't breathe. German losses seem heavier. It's always worse for those who must cross open ground. Night descends and the work continues. Wounded are evacuated down zigzagging communication trenches, the dead buried just behind the lines. Small cemeteries bloom, wooden crosses marking names already fading. Sometimes a chaplain says a few words. More often, there's no time. The living take priority, but the mind keeps count. The weight of each fight settles differently in each man. Some laugh at the worst of it, resigned, detached. Others grow quieter, tense, startled by every snap of twig or distant gun, and a few simply shut down. The 1,000-yard stare, vacant, still, a soul somewhere else. Officers know it now. Shell shock. Later they'll call it PTSD. Then they weren't sure what to call it. Some called it cowardice. You see it tonight. A private, barely 18, sits silently, shaking at shadows, jerking at every noise. The medic glances at him, shakes his head. Another one gone, he mutters. They're getting stricter. Command worries that fear spreads like disease. Maybe they're right. But so does courage. Veterans learn to hold the line, not just with weapons, but with calm and example. They teach the new ones how to survive, not recklessly, and not frozen in fear, just steady. That night, sleep comes in pieces, troubled. Dreams are broken fragments of gunfire, smoke, gas clouds. You wake again and again, and each time, for a moment, you don't know where you are. Then the trench reminds you, the smells, the sounds, the ever-present mud beneath you. You're still here, still alive. The next morning arrives, quietly. Another cycle begins. Stand to, work parties, rations. But today, there's one more task. The battlefield must be cleaned. Shell holes are filled, torn wire replaced, and blood-darkened soil is quietly covered with fresh earth. Not for hygiene, but for morale. The machine of war resets itself, gears turning, preparing for another round. But then, a ripple of good news. You're being relieved tonight. Your battalion will rotate to the support trenches. 4 days of relative calm, followed by rest billets farther behind the lines. The change in mood is instant. Talk turns to hot food, proper sleep, even clean socks. At dusk, the relief arrives. Fresh troops from your own regiment, led by officers who spent the day studying your trench layout. The handover is careful, methodical. Section by section, they take your places. You find yourself briefing a private, no more than 17, on where to post sentries, which bends in the trench draw the most fire, where the snipers like to hide. His eyes are wide, too wide. You recognize the fear. You tell him, quietly, that the Bavarians across the way aren't too bad. They don't shoot stretcher bearers. They leave ration parties alone, most of the time. But watch for trench mortars at dawn, you add. They like to wake us up. The words feel surreal. A month ago, you didn't know any of this. Now you speak like someone who's always been here. Trenches age men quickly. Boys become veterans in weeks, not years. With the last details exchanged, your company forms up in the communication trench. It's a slow march, narrow turns, mud, but safer than crossing open ground. The journey's short, 2 miles, but takes hours. As you move, the soundscape changes. Gunfire fades, explosions drift behind you. The silence at first feels strange, then relieving. The air smells cleaner, less smoke, less death. The support trenches are wider, deeper, better built. Some dugouts even have bunks, a stove, a place to sit. The change is subtle, but unmistakable. You stand taller, speak louder, smoke a cigarette without cupping it in your hands. For now, you've survived. The shells, the raids, the gas, but in a few days, maybe a week, you'll go back. The front line waits patiently. This is the rhythm of the Western Front. Rotate forward, endure, rotate back, recover, repeat. A machine that devours men and ammunition, yet moves inches, if at all. Victory here doesn't belong to the brave. It belongs to the side that can bleed longer. In your new dugout, you share cigarettes with those who made it out. Conversation drifts to home, to things you'll do after the war, to anything but what's ahead or what's just past. That, too, is part of survival, living in the narrow present, neither dwelling nor dreading. Mail tomorrow, says a lance corporal, and hot showers, if the boilers work. Everyone smiles at the thought. A letter, a bath, a meal without bully beef. These are the milestones now. They carry men through the unthinkable. 2 miles away, others now stand where you stood, watching the wire, listening for movement, living the same pattern. Some won't be there when you return, and their replacements will look at you as you once looked at someone older for the silent wisdom of how to stay alive. But for tonight, you eat in peace. You sleep without a rifle within arm's reach. You breathe without the burn of gas in your lungs. And for the first time in days, you dream of silence. Small mercies in a merciless war. But they matter. They always matter. After 4 days in the support trenches, your battalion is sent farther back to rest. A small French village, 5 miles behind the front, and the change feels almost dreamlike. One day, you're knee-deep in mud, watching for snipers and listening for mortars. The next, you're walking on cobbled streets. Buildings still stand, some damaged, but whole. You can smell bread, hear children playing in the distance. Here, the war is not gone, but it feels quieter. These rest areas are not paradise, but they are sanctuaries. The thunder of artillery is still out there, a low, ever-present growl. But here, you are safe, safer. You sleep in barns or what's left of houses. Hot food is cooked in proper field kitchens, and you begin to remember what it felt like to be human. Your platoon is assigned to a farmhouse. Its roof leaks. Windows are patched with canvas, but it has solid walls, real floors. That alone makes it luxurious. The farmer and his wife still live in part of it. They coexist wordlessly with the soldiers who pass through in an endless rotation. The first order of business, cleanliness. In a barn, someone has set up a makeshift bathhouse, wooden tubs, copper boilers. Men wait in long, silent lines. When your turn comes, you strip. Layers of uniform caked in dried sweat and mud. Attendants take your clothes for delousing, steam and heat to kill lice, though the smell remains. You ease into a tub of hot water. It turns gray immediately, but it feels divine. First proper wash in 23 days, says the man beside you. I counted every one. Clean again. Sort of. You dress in your own uniform, now free of parasites, temporarily, and for a moment, you don't itch. That alone feels like victory. That evening, you gather for the first real meal in weeks. Stew with actual meat, vegetables, fresh bread, tea, served in mugs, not tin cups. Men eat slowly, almost reverently. Then, mail call. The clerk reads names, hands out letters, packages, tethers to a world outside of war. Some men get many, some nothing. You hear your name, 2 letters, one from your mother, one from a friend. You don't open them yet. They deserve privacy. With basic needs met, warmth, food, clean clothes, your body begins to relax. The schedule here is softer, but not idle. Mornings begin with roll call, inspections, gear repair, training, briefings. But there is time to be. In a dusty corner of the farmhouse yard, a football match begins. A ball from home, jackets as goalposts, boots on uneven dirt. They play like boys again, despite everything, cheered on by men shouting wagers from the sidelines. 5 francs on B Company, calls a sergeant. Laughter, yelling, joy, real joy. It feels strange and wonderful, and for the first time in weeks, you smile without guilt. A crumpled note waves in the air. 5 francs on B Company. The men cheer. Gambling, technically prohibited, but no one stops it. Not here. Officers look the other way, knowing morale is worth far more than rules. Nearby, others write letters, play cards, or simply sit, faces tilted upward toward a rare patch of sun, like flowers seeking light. These quiet moments. This is when friendships form, real ones, unspoken, unbreakable. Thomas sits beside you on an old ammunition crate. He cleans his rifle with care, even though the front is miles away. Some habits, they're just too deep to break. Got family, lad? He asks, not looking up. You nod. Tell him about your parents, a sister, the small town you grew up in. He shares his own, a wife, a son, back in Manchester, a factory job he'll never return to. Even if he survives, he says, the war has changed him too much. Strange thing, he mutters, checking the rifle barrel for any lingering dirt. I can't write them about what it's really like. I try to, but the words never come out right. That's common. There's a gap, a chasm, really, between those who've seen the front and those who haven't. Letters home become fiction, cheerful, sanitized, not to deceive, but to protect. Some truths are too sharp to send through the post. As evening falls, the men gather. A corporal sings music hall songs with a battered harmonica as backup. Others join in. Choruses rise. Rough voices carrying melodies that sound like home. Ballads of sweethearts. Rowdy marching tunes with lyrics that would scandalize any civilian. Then, a darker song. If you want to find the old battalion, I know where they are. They're hanging on the old barbed wire. Macabre, yes, but somehow comforting. Humor, even gallows humor, becomes a shield against everything that can't be faced directly. Later, someone pulls out a bottle. Cheap French wine, bought from a local farmer at an outrageous price. It passes from hand to hand. Each man takes a sip, a quiet communion that dissolves rank. Just for a little while. In the soft glow of lanterns, faces look younger, gentler. They speak of home, of plans, of after. I'm going to open a tobacconist shop, says a lance corporal, smiling. Always wanted a farm, adds another. Quiet place, no more bloody noise. These dreams, they're fragile. Few believe they'll come true. But still, they dream. Planning for the future is defiance, a protest against death. Not every coping mechanism is so gentle. Some men drink too much. Some turn to local women. Others misuse morphine meant for battlefield wounds. Most officers look the other way during rest periods. They understand. Pressure must escape somewhere. Discipline stretches, but doesn't break. Religion, too, offers a kind of relief. The battalion chaplain holds services in a bombed-out church. Men who never prayed find themselves drawn to the rituals, not always for belief, but for meaning, for structure, for stillness. Some turn to superstition instead. Lucky coins, cards, bits of shrapnel that nearly killed but didn't. Private rituals abound. Left boot first. Touching wood before patrol. Photographs tucked over the heart. Your own is a small saint, Christopher medal, a gift from your mother. You don't know if it protects you, but it feels like protection, and sometimes that's enough. But then again, in a world this random, who can blame them? The randomness of death in the trenches is perhaps the most unsettling part of it all. No skill, no bravery, no amount of caution can guarantee your survival when shells fall without warning or when poison gas drifts with the shifting wind. And so, the illusion of control becomes essential. A lucky charm, a ritual, a medal tucked close to your heart, not because it works, but because it helps you breathe. Another form of coping emerges quietly during the rest periods. Creation, imagination, beauty. Men sketch in worn notebooks. They write poetry, craft tiny treasures from the detritus of war. Spent shells become vases. Bullets become pencil holders. Shrapnel fragments polished into rings. This trench art, it means something. A small victory over the destruction. In your section, a corporal is quietly engraving a floral pattern into a shell casing. Nothing but a nail and patience. He taps softly, rhythmically, the sound like gentle rain beneath the murmur of evening talk. "Sending this one to my girl," he says, showing you the half-completed design. "It tells her I'm thinking of her, without talking about." He gestures vaguely, toward the guns. Always the guns. Later, packages arrive from home. Some men tear them open with boyish glee. Others, more slowly, almost reverently. And what's inside is never kept to oneself. A cake from someone's mother becomes a feast for an entire section. Even those who didn't know the sender get a slice. Books and newspapers pass from hand to hand until they fall apart. Cigarettes, the real currency out here, are given freely when there are enough. And when there aren't, they're still shared. No one is left out. That's the rule. This is one of the war's strangest mercies. Men who would never have spoken in peace becoming brothers under fire. A former coal miner nods toward a group of officers. "Never spoke to toffs before the war," he says with a grin. "Now that lieutenant, Oxford and all, carried me half a mile under fire when I took shrapnel." The officer overhears, smiles awkwardly. "You'd have done the same," he says quietly. And he's right. Out here, acts of incredible courage become commonplace. Not because these men are natural heroes, but because they can't leave each other behind. The medals. Many are won not for killing, but for saving. Carrying the wounded from no man's land. Running messages through storms of shells. And when night comes again, they drift toward sleep. The farmhouse offers mattresses of straw, luxuries unimaginable in the trenches. Some read by candlelight. Others speak softly about anything but war. You slip away to a quiet corner to open your letters. The first, from your mother. News from home, neighbors, rationing. Hints of worry between careful words. She wants you safe, but doesn't say it. The second letter catches you off guard. An old friend writes of someone you both knew, recently wounded, but alive. Sent home. His name brings a jolt. It's strange how hearing of one familiar face can reconnect you to who you were before, to a life that still exists, somewhere. And just like that, the world you've tried to separate begins to bleed together again. Letters folded, tucked safely in your tunic, close to your heart. You'll reread them again and again in darker days to come. Anchors of normalcy in a sea of mud and fear. Tonight, for once, sleep comes easily. And the dreams, they might even be peaceful. The body begins to mend. Blisters, sores, bruises from pack straps and trench walls. Even the mind, tired beyond words, feels just a little lighter. In the morning, a small announcement spreads with surprising excitement. A concert party is coming to perform. Soldiers turned entertainers, musicians, actors, comics, traveling from camp to camp, offering laughter as an antidote to war. The day moves slowly, training, equipment checks, but always with one eye on the coming show. A barn is cleared. Planks and ammo boxes become a stage. Benches appear, rough, uneven, but welcomed all the same. That night, men gather in the dim light. The smell of tobacco and smuggled wine mingles with the scent of straw and old wood. The regimental band opens the evening, tunes from home, and then the comedy begins. Sketches that mock officers, gently, parodies of army routines and orders. The laughter comes fast, louder than expected. Men who've been silent for weeks suddenly doubled over, laughing until tears fall. Then, a hush. A sergeant with a rich tenor voice sings, "Keep the home fires burning." The melody drifts through the rafters like smoke. Some men close their eyes, others look away, and then the pace shifts again, back to rowdy tunes and music hall numbers with lyrics too crude for polite company. But no one here is polite company. For 2 brief hours, the war disappears, and the barn feels more like a music hall than a ruin. Encore after encore keeps the show going. No one wants it to end. Later, walking back to billets, men hum softly, snippets of lyrics, half-remembered jokes, the mood lighter than it's been in days. "You imagine putting on a show in the trenches?" someone says. "They'd stop shelling just to listen," another replies. "And then where would the war be?" The laughter returns, software tired, but real. In your billet, the talk continues, quiet, casual, football, favorite meals, girls left behind, topics chosen for their deliberate normalcy, like a thread back to the world that once was. "Strange," Thomas murmurs as he lies back on the straw. People at home just going about their lives, beds, hot dinners, shops, another world. And you wonder, can you ever really return? Even if you make it home, in one piece, will the you that returns be the same? A question for another time. Tonight, you have a roof, a mattress, and no shells falling overhead. Sleep comes deep, real, restorative. Around you, the slow rhythm of breath. Not fear, but rest. For a moment, the war has loosened its grip. Tomorrow, training, preparation. Then, the inevitable return. But not yet. Tonight, there is warmth. There is laughter. And the quiet beauty of a moment that simply is. The rest period ends soon. 7 precious days. A breath between storms. And in that breath, you remember what it feels like to be human. The final day arrives with a strange mix of emotions. Reluctance, fatigue, and, beneath it all, a quiet readiness. The trenches, for all their filth and fear, have become familiar, almost natural. Stranger still, they feel more real than the life you left behind. Morning begins with the usual inspection, but this time, everything is checked twice. Rifles, gas masks, even the fit of boots and socks. "Rain's coming," says the sergeant, his tone light, masking worry. "Don't let trench foot ruin our lovely accommodations up the line." Tired smiles follow, a shared joke to distract from the weight settling back over every man. Fresh supplies arrive, extra bandages, ammunition, rations, and iodine ampules for wounds that haven't happened yet. They carry an unspoken message. No one says it. Everyone knows. Saxons now face your sector, not the Bavarians, not the ones who respected stretcher bearers, who paused shelling to allow ration parties through. These new opponents are unpredictable. Caution tightens like a new strap across the chest. After breakfast, there's time for final letters. Each man writes with unusual care, as if these words might be the last they send. Pressed flowers, drawings of barns and boots, a small ring made from shrapnel, tiny anchors to something human. You write your own, but the words feel foreign. How do you describe mud and terror and brotherhood? How do you explain the soft whistle of incoming fire or the quiet warmth of a stolen joke under starlight? In the end, you write of food and weather, and reassure your mother with gentle lies. The battalion forms up, straps are pulled, rifles slung, packs adjusted. Conversation fades, each man turning inward, summoning whatever ritual helps him face the march. A touch of metal, a whispered prayer, a cap tilted just so. 7 miles, says the lieutenant, consulting his map. To the support trench. Overnight there, front line tomorrow. 7 miles, a short walk at home, a lifetime now. Each step forward is a step toward chaos, and yet they come. The column moves down a country road lined with poplars. The trees still bear leaves, green and stubborn. A few birds sing. It feels wrong, too beautiful for what's ahead, too alive. You walk near the middle. Rhythmic steps, a shared march, a quiet acceptance. This is the cycle. Forward, endure, return, recover, repeat. A war without movement, but filled with motion. And so you march, through fading light, toward the trenches once more, shoulders aching, heart steady, and breath by breath, you disappear again into the machine. There's a strange comfort in shared direction. No one would choose this path alone, but together, you walk it willingly. The road changes as the front draws near. Cratered earth, water-filled shell holes, some now home to frogs who seem curiously at peace. Life still finds a way, even here. More soldiers now, more movement, ambulances retreating with the wounded, ammunition wagons pushing forward, dispatch riders speed past on motorcycles, the machinery of war endlessly grinding. You stop every hour, 10 minutes to breathe, to pass canteens, to share a cigarette. The grass feels soft, too soft. Your body resists the return to weight and hardship. Above you, the sky hums. A formation of Bristol F-2 fighters glides overhead, tight and purposeful. Men wave like children at a passing train. "Rather be up there," someone says. "Not me," replies a corporal. "Nowhere to hide when it goes wrong." He whistles, then mimics a crash. The war is no longer flat. It exists above and below. Trenches, mines, dogfights. Everywhere, danger with its own logic. By afternoon, the landscape has changed completely. Buildings, gone. Fields, torn open. Trees, charred ghosts of what once shaded the road. The sounds grow familiar again. Boom, rattle, crack. Not fear, just weather. At a crossroads, military police wave you forward. "End of the road," says Thomas, his voice calm. He's right. This is where the surface ends. A communication trench waits ahead. The mouth of another world. The descent begins. Wooden boards beneath your boots. Walls braced with planks and wire. Still, the mud seeps through. You move in single file. No talking now, only breath and the soft scuff of gear against dirt. The deeper you go, the quieter it gets. Light fades, time stretches, and the surface world fades behind you. 2 hours pass, or maybe 10. There is no clock down here, only the reawakening of vigilance, the familiar hum of tension coiling back around your chest. You've returned to the deep, to the place that remembers your name. The trench zigzags, not by accident. The angles protect from the eyes that watch and the shells that fall. Support trenches are quiet, comparatively. Dugouts are carved into the walls, not quite safe, but safer. Some have bunks with straw, small stoves for warmth, even chairs, salvaged from villages that no longer exist. "Home sweet home," says a sergeant with tired humor. Hot rations at 7, stand to at dawn. This middle ground, between safety and the line, offers transition. Time to settle the body and prepare the mind. You clean your gear, write a last letter. Someone plays a gramophone. Music, soft and strange among sandbags and rifles. News trickles in. Quiet sector, minimal casualties, no recent raids. That's good news, in trench terms. But you know how quickly things change. A new enemy unit, a new order from above. Everything turns. Inside the dugout, you settle beside Thomas and 4 others. The air smells of oil, leather, and fatigue. You know their habits, their silences. Even their laughter has become familiar. Think this rotation will be quiet? Asks a young lad, eyes wide with hope. Never predict, says Thomas. Just do your job. Watch your mates. Keep your head down when it makes sense to. That's all there is. Not grand speeches, not heroics. Just the next hour, the next step, the next breath. Sleep comes, light and fractured. Dreams don't know where to land, half home, half horror. At dawn, you rise for stand to. Always at dawn, always at dusk. Those are the hours when the light plays tricks and enemies move. Today, you're in support. You get tea, maybe even bacon. Tomorrow, cold rations, no fire, no songs. The hours pass in maintenance, fixing duckboards, checking rifles, preparing quietly for the next descent. The medical officer moves quietly, looking for shaking hands, pale faces, eyes that don't quite focus. Taylor, Hughes, Wilson, report to the aid post. They nod, walk off. Relieved, maybe. Ashamed, maybe. They won't go forward tonight. They'll stay back, do what they can, until their bodies or minds steady again. Once, this would have been called cowardice. Now, it's called care. As evening nears, the company prepares. Extra rations, final checks, assignments whispered like prayers. We move at dusk, says the lieutenant. 3rd platoon first, then headquarters, then 2nd, then 1st. He pauses. Full kit, no talking, all in place before midnight. Light fades, and with it, comfort. Even the support trench, muddy and cold, feels suddenly safe. You tighten straps, check for metal that might shine. Nothing can rattle, nothing can reflect. The march begins, single file, no noise. Through zigzag paths, past cratered walls and the smell of rot and bleach and war. Each step forward is a step back into something you never truly left. The front is exactly how you remember it, and not narrow, wet, alive, somehow, with tension. It shifts, it changes, it's never the same twice. Relief protocol begins, quiet exchanges in the dark. They mortar here around 5 a.m., says a voice. Snipers fast, got Williams yesterday, barely showed his head. They hand over maps, notes, warnings, not rules, but lifelines. Whispers that keep the next man breathing. And just like that, the others are gone. You're in charge now. This slice of earth is yours to hold, yours to survive. Midnight. The sky is dark, the trench is full, and quiet. Too quiet. But soon, you'll hear the sound of the war reminding you it hasn't gone anywhere. Not really. Sentry assignments begin at once, with the most seasoned men taking first watch while others arrange dugouts and gear. Standing on the fire step, cautiously observing no man's land through a periscope, you feel the strange sensation of returning to a place your mind knows to fear, and yet, strangely, recognizes. The trenches, with all their hardship, have become familiar terrain. Roles are known, expectations clear. What once seemed extraordinary now feels almost routine. This mental adjustment reveals much about trench life. Men adapt to realities that once would have seemed unendurable. They create habits in chaos, moments of stillness amid threat, even finding humor in the absurd. The human mind normalizes the intolerable, helping men survive while making the unacceptable feel routine. In your dugout, between sentry shifts, Thomas sums it up while lighting a small stove for tea. "Strangest thing," he says softly, shielding the flame from the outside. "First day at the front, I thought I wouldn't make it till nightfall. Now it's been 15 months, and I wonder sometimes if I'll know how to live after, if there is an after." The idea of afterward haunts many quiet conversations. Who are we now compared to who we were? How do you return to peace, if you return at all? What changes in men here go beyond wounds? Perceptions shift, fear becomes a tool, and strength is redefined. Some are sure life will go back to normal. Others sense deeper changes that cannot be undone. Most say nothing. The focus stays on the now. Get through today. Worry about tomorrow later. The night follows its usual rhythm. Sentry duty, short sleep, stand to, minor repairs. By morning, the unit is fully reintegrated into the frontline world. Everyone falls back into familiar roles shaped by repetition. Dawn brings the anticipated shelling, timed but not precisely targeted. Men duck into dugouts or hug traverse corners. Veterans can tell the shell type by sound. Their responses are quick, practiced. When the barrage fades, work resumes, repairs, watches, messages pass by runners. The machine continues, despite turnover, despite attack. For each man, it creates a strange mix of tension and monotony. The body remains alert. The mind forms patterns that dull the edge of fear. Thomas voices this, scanning through the periscope. "See that crater? 40 yards out. Lost Johnston there last week. Patrol walked into an ambush." He keeps scanning, his tone steady. Useful cover, though. But Jerry knows that too. Veterans walk this line, aware, but not frozen. They measure risk with routine, and save emotion for when it's truly needed. The days go by, each one similar, but never quite the same. Minor differences take on meaning. A day without casualties feels like quiet victory. A letter from home breaks the sameness. A bit of rum lifts spirits when things get hard. Connections deepen here. Men who shared billets now share the nearness of death. The bond strengthens in silence. They form wordless signals, understand each other's habits. Trust runs deep, life-saving deep. This brotherhood may be the one good thing that veterans consistently remember. Asked what they miss, they rarely mention the war itself. What they miss is each other. The war, oddly, becomes background, like the weather. Artillery, once terrifying, now part of the landscape. Death, once shocking, becomes expected, not less sad, but less surprising. This mindset aids survival, but leaves its mark. The vigilance doesn't fade when the danger does. Sudden sounds, closed spaces, unexpected crowds, they linger. Dreams replay the worst moments. What would later be called PTSD is everywhere here, unnamed but deeply felt. Some recover, some don't. Invisible wounds often last longer than the ones anyone can see. In the trenches, few speak of it. Survival is the focus. Comrades come first. The future is distant, unreachable, one day at a time. This focus on the immediate isn't weakness, it's practicality. No one can grasp the full scale of the war, not really. So, time shrinks. A day, an hour, a task. The rotation continues. Your world narrows. A few hundred yards of trench, a handful of men, a simple task. Big ideas, politics, strategy, don't matter much now. What matters is wire, ammunition, keeping watch. And still, beauty appears. A sunrise, a bird on the wire, a joke, a letter passed around, small mercies, little reminders that life is still possible in the mud. You remember these moments, long after the trenches are gone. The real history isn't just in books, it's here, in memory. The feel of wet cloth against your shoulders, the light over the shell-pocked field, the sound of a friend's voice in the dark. This is the truth of it. This is the war that lives on. Not in grand reports or polished speeches, but in the weight of lived experience. And that is something no historian can fully capture.